Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds! Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Now with this campaign, bang, dang, it's and Drew, come roll with the gang.
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds. How's it going, buddies?
Hi,
nerds.
We have my MAGA brother, Peter, back on the show. For some reason, people really like, I don't know why, having you on the show, but there you go.
Unfiltered.
You are unfiltered. You live your life unfiltered, Peter.
Yes.
So what's going on? Last time we had you on the show, you were all ready for the zombie apocalypse. Are you still worried, or do you feel like we're kind of approaching the midpoint at least?
Yeah, the interesting thing, Tom, I want to ask you about is actually, the infection rates and everything is much higher than it was a few weeks ago or when we last talked, when I showed you all my disaster equipment or some of my disaster equipment, but now there's like a stranger sense of calm, when you walk around, or even in media and social media, you're seeing stuff kind of be reopening, like in northern Florida, they're reopening beaches today.
Right.
So I don't know. It's weird. I mean, if you ask me, it's kind of like, behind me is a street corner, and I look out here all the time, day and night. And what I noticed the last 1 or 2 weeks is that more and more people using the face mask. Whereas maybe like when we first talked, no one's really using it.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, when this whole crisis started going down in mid-March, there was still a lot of street traffic still, at night. But nighttime here outside, it's completely dead. Like there's nothing going on. Yeah, even though it's like a major area. So I don't know. It's weird. It's like, are people just accepting it? I mean, so I don't know. I mean, I live alone, so I don't live with a family, and I'm pretty much doing social distancing. So what's like when you talk to your nerdies in the US? I mean, what's going on?
I mean, I think the people that are looking at the data are seeing a flattening of the number of new cases. And they're also encouraged by the fact that the hospitals were able to kind of just in the nick of time provide sufficient ICU capacity.
Yeah.
And I think the social distancing has worked. So we've gone from this point where every day it was like more and more cases, and it just felt like, oh my God, like this is a volcano erupting, to now it feels more like a wave that's crested, and it's not coming down like dramatically, but it's at least like not getting any worse. Yeah. And I think that combined with fatigue, with sort of shelter in place, like people are ready. Like here in Switzerland, they just announced like the reopening plan, like a 3-stage plan, and that's going to start in a few weeks. And I think everybody here is really looking forward to it because, it's not great for the economy, and it's not great for people's mental health. And so I think people are eager to believe, and they want hope. And the data does indicate that things are not getting worse every day. Open question about reinfection and whether there'll be a second and third wave. But at some point, like, you can't put the economy on pause indefinitely, right?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, since you're on data and all that. I mean, there is some signs of reinfection in South Korea and China. I don't think we have that much data here in the US, but the reinfection rate in South Korea was a few percent of those infected. I don't know the actual number, but
yeah, I mean, I think ultimately the 2% mortality rate caps how kind of desperate the situation could become. Because if it were like a 10% mortality rate, then I think a lot of us would be like, well, yeah, I just don't want to have a 1 in 10 chance of dying because of this, you know? But since it's 2%, I think people are like, well, you know, at some point, maybe I won't get it. So if I only have a 10% chance of getting it, then it's only a 0.2% chance of dying. And at the end of the day, like, they need to pay their bills, they need to make their mortgage, and, you know, like.
See, I don't know if it's only a 10% chance of people getting it, because like you saw that recent news article where they tested people randomly on the street. It was very high. They tested 200 people, 64 were infected.
Yeah, so let's say it's 50% chance of getting it. It's still then a 1% chance of dying.
Yeah.
And I also think when you look at the people who are falling ill and expiring because of this, I think very often they have other conditions and they're pretty advanced in age.
Yeah,
so I think
the big thing was the BMI was very high for those people. I think that was some correlation. Yeah.
So diabetes, people overweight, smokers. So I think a lot of people are like, okay, hopefully I won't get it. And if I do get it, there's a small percentage chance that I'll fall victim. And then I think combined with the idea that like they instinctively know that we can't be in shelter in place forever, right? That's like living on the moon then.
My concern, and there are some of those reports where people didn't have any underlying symptoms, but they were intubated. I mean, they did have to go to ICU. And that's not going to be a pleasant thing. I mean, you know, with the tube stuck down your throat, you know, and all that, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it would suck to have it done, but I haven't heard too many cases like in Italy where they actually, people who needed ventilators couldn't get them.
Yeah.
I don't think we've had that here in the US. Now, of course, there's a risk that we reopen too early and then, you know, we kind of overcorrect.
Right. I mean, look what happened in Singapore. They just hit almost, I mean, for a small country, their number of cases is as high as the bigger countries next to them. Like they hit like 900 new infections yesterday or today, depending on how you calculate it, which is quite a lot for you know, 5, 6, 7 million population places.
Yeah. And certainly Singapore used to be a bit of like, oh, that's how you should do it, right?
Yeah. Then they reopened the whole system. They like kind of relaxed, and now they're even more clamped down than the US. I mean, you can't even be walking in the street with people that are not in your immediate live-in household, either friends or family. It's illegal.
Yeah. Now, the good news for them is their mortality rate is very low. So they currently have, it looks like, around 4,300 cases. But they're only seeing about 1 death a day. So, you know, I think, of course, it's not great that they have so many active cases, but it may not be as deadly of a disease as we were fearing. Because you remember, like a month ago, people just didn't know. They were like, well, we don't trust the data out of China, and understandably. And they see like Italy just kind of imploding.
10%, right? Italy.
Right. 10%. Yeah. And so the worry was like, well, shoot, like maybe it can get worse. So, you know, I think there's reason for this optimism. It'll be interesting. Like we'll know like in a month, because you have these countries starting to reopen. And if it turns south, then it'll be maybe another 6 to 12 months of lockdown, but hopefully things will be normal. And
how do you open and still have social distancing? And like we were talking on a family chat, you guys are reopening hair salons and also dental. Like hair salons, like people are going to be close to you. Are they going to be wearing masks, or do the clients have to wear masks?
I would imagine that there will be masks. But I think the bigger picture is that the Swiss system has the hospital capacity to handle the infection. Like the infections are just going to happen. Like we're not trying to eliminate them. I don't think any country is trying to eliminate it. They're just trying to keep it down enough so that if you do need intensive care, you can get it. But other than that, once you do have it, in theory, you could develop antibodies. And then if enough of us get the antibodies, it'll be like flu, you know?
So for you and your small family, like you and your wife and your 2 kids, like you feel obviously confident that if you were to get it, that you would not need hospitalization, right? Is that what you're telling me?
No, what I'm saying is if I were to get it and I did need hospitalization, I feel like I could
that won't
get
be fun. That won't be fun though. It won't, you know, like I don't even want to get hospitalization. You know,
no, dude, I'm not saying I want to, but I mean, I got to go to work. The kids got to go to school. Like this is no way to live what we're doing now. Like it's completely, the quality of life is terrible. And so, I mean, like anytime you get in a car, you take a risk. Anytime you get on a plane, you take a risk. It's just a numbers game. So for me, I mean, for me, I'm more worried about the economic outlook for all of these countries. I mean, this is where, ironically,
you agree with Trump.
No.
Yeah, you do. Say it.
No.
You got to open up. What did he say?
I don't know what he said.
We're not built for this. We're not built. America's not built for this.
No, I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that
I'm wearing my red for
your MAGA. Yeah, it's great. I would say that people need to work. People need to be able to feed themselves. They need to pay for their medicine. They need to pay for their health care. And so at some point, if you run the numbers, having an extended deep recession or potential depression could kill indirectly a certain number of people. Will it kill 1 to 2%? Maybe, actually, if you had a depression.
So riots or like crime spree.
Riots, people, all kinds of mental health stuff. Like it's not sheltering in place is not free, you know?
Let me ask you something. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, so it's not free, and so this is where, in the old days, people would be accusing me of saying, like, well, what do you want, a death panel? I'm saying that we have 2 bad options. We can shelter in place until we find a vaccine, which could be 1 to 1.5 years. Or we can slowly kind of take our foot off the brake and make sure we have enough mitigations in place so that hospitals are not overrun, but then people can get back to work.
So what do the nerds think about how to protect like the most vulnerable, like the elderlies? Like declined it, yeah. What about like how do you quarantine, or would you think about quarantining old people or anything like that, so that
Yeah, the most at-risk population.
Yeah, I mean, because
that would be so much. I mean, that there are ways, obviously, for the nursing homes. We can certainly have additional nursing home capacity so people aren't as close. We can have priority access for PPE for people who work in healthcare. I mean, there's a lot of things that you could do to give further protection for the most at risk without doing a complete shutdown for another 6 months. There's just, like everything, there's a continuum
balance. Yeah.
And it's going to be this slow, like, what the analogy they say, it's more like a dimmer switch than an on and off switch. And I think that makes sense. I mean, the thing that I am disappointed about is I do feel like the task force should present a much clearer plan for reopening the country and basically say, like, here are our phases, here's the scorecard, here are the key performance indicators that we're going to measure. Here is, like, we're going to make these go, no-go decisions when we go from stage 1 to stage 2. And I don't get that feeling. I feel like these briefings, because I've been watching them, they seem like more like debating sessions, and like I feel like I'm being sold. And what I want is someone to say, like, no, here's the plan. This is why we think it makes sense. And here are the objective facts and kind of precise details that will then give me confidence that, it's being managed properly.
It's weird. They have to like organize. I was watching Cuomo's press conference. I don't know if it was Friday or Thursday.
Way better. And he has PowerPoint and charts.
Yeah, no, he was talking about like how you need to coordinate with the nearby states. So you can't have like one state's beach is open and not the others, then that one state's beach is going to get swamped, And I kind of worry also about Miami Beach if and when they open it. I mean, good or bad. I mean, obviously it's good that the tourism comes back, but then we'll get swamped. Then what,
Yeah, I mean, I think these kinds of things need more coordination between the states. You can't just let them kind of pick their own path. You know what I mean? It's like, this is one of those things where if one state says like, whatever, festivals every day and those people will then go back to other states and kind of just destabilize the whole recovery.
Yeah. And also, this is also a global thing. So I don't know what's going to happen. Like, I think this thing is already spreading in third world countries.
Developing countries.
Okay. Developing countries.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then are we going to have quarantine so we don't allow people from developing countries into the US, say in 3 months' time? Like China is being very strict with outsiders now. So I don't know.
Yeah, I was looking at some data from Australia. The number one source of their corona cases are Americans. And the Chinese are concerned about the Russians now. So I was actually talking with someone who works in international development. And she was saying that these developing countries are completely screwed.
Unprepared. Yeah. They've got no ventilators. They got no running water. The people living in cramped spaces, and they have millions and millions of people in the city. So I don't know what they're going to do.
I mean, we're here like freaking out about, am I going to be able to get the double ply Charmin toilet paper with the light blue bears on it? They don't have shit. They don't have running
So let me
water.
ask you a question. Assuming that there's no vaccination, and even if the vaccination were to help, it would go to the highest bidders. It was going to go to Europe and Americas first, probably. It's not going to go to developing countries. What is the impact to the developed world or the Western world if the developing world is highly, highly infected and zombified? You know what I'm saying?
Well, if we have all the vaccines, then when folks come in infected, that shouldn't affect us, right?
Okay. All right. That's true. But that's still a year and a half away, you're saying, right?
Yeah. So then what you would probably want to do is either convince yourself that there's a very small percentage of asymptomatic infectees, and then you could try and catch them with temperature reads when they come off the plane. Or if you wanted to, you could require a test before they get issued the visa, for a tourist visa, to say, like when I went to Africa last year, I mean, I had to get all these like vaccinations, and I had all my paperwork ready. Although they didn't check. It's the Peter's
raining outside Florida.
All right.
Weird. Yeah.
Is that weird?
So I don't know. No, I mean, so what's going on? Like, is the task force going to talk about that? They should. Or
Dude,
do you think it's too?
Well, you're the freaking Trump supporter. He has a freaking briefing practically every day, and all it seems like it's like reminds me of like a hostage video. Like he has Briggs and Fauci, and then Pez like, at the direction of the president, all these great things have happened, and the USS Mercy is docked and it has 1,000 beds and everything's fine. And we and it's like, come on, man, what is the effing plan? What is the plan? And I find that there's no consistency. Like one day I have total, complete authority, like King Donald, right? The next day, it's no. The governors are going to call the shots. They have the best data. And then the next day, it's like, people need to be liberated, and Virginia is doing terrible things to the Second Amendment. And so I find the opposite of a steady hand. And I feel like in a world crisis, if anybody should be a steady hand, it should be the President of the United States.
So it seems like it's very localized leaders that are deciding. You know, obviously, like northern Florida beaches are open, but not here in South Florida. And then, state by state. But what you're saying is that the federal government should have some type of guidelines or
yes, I think it should have some effing guidelines. I mean, for crying out loud, the federal government has guidelines about highway safety. They have guidelines about public education.
Can you give an example in the public health space where the federal government has guidelines, but then again, it's up to state or local authorities to issue stuff? I mean, I don't know,
well, take the Food and Drug Administration. Like, each state doesn't decide when a pharmaceutical company can issue a new drug, or take food safety. Like, each state doesn't decide what are the minimum standards for food preparation and animal butchering and all that kind of stuff. Like, there is a purpose for a competent government. And it doesn't make sense for each of the 50 states to figure it out independently, especially when they don't have the resources. You would think, like with the CDC, with HHS, with all of these sort of international organizations, that the federal government should lead the way here. Now, I'm not saying that Trump should dictate to every state, like, you must do this or we're going to send the army in. But at least say, these are our guidelines. This is how we think every state should evaluate when they reopen. These are the criteria that we think are subject to interpretation. But here are some deal breakers. Like, as an example, if you have 2 weeks of flat or growing hospitalizations due to COVID, you shouldn't accelerate your reopening. If it's actually increased, if your cases are increasing, you may need to increase your mitigations. These are common sense things.
I would like the federal government, maybe they should start with the bigger picture items, which is easier, like the international travelers or returning Americans. Like in Singapore, everyone goes through a mandatory 2-week quarantine. Mm-hmm. So they obviously do temperature screening probably at the border. I mean, I'm sure they do at the airport. But they don't care whether you got a fever or not. You're going into quarantine. So maybe, I'm not saying that Trump should do that or not do that, but maybe Trump should have those policies, which clearly he would be able to, or he would be in charge of.
Now, some people in the audience, like Trev Third, is saying that, hey, they did come out with the guidelines. And I would agree, there have been guidelines put out. I think the problem is that the commander-in-chief is very inconsistent in his language about those guidelines. As an example, one of the guidelines was that people should wear masks. But then the president's like, look, it's a recommendation. You can do it or not. I'm not going to do it. And then you're like, Bricks and Fauci are there. And you're wondering, well, then why did they just tell everybody that we should be wearing masks?
Well, because he's protected by Secret Service and probably anyone coming close to him.
Yeah, I think he lives in his world where he's like, he has the luxury. I mean, he doesn't go out, right? No. So so I think part of the challenge is what he would call the deep state does have guidelines, and the CDC and HHS have been working very studiously about it. But the way it's communicated at these daily briefings is all about why it's somebody else's fault. And I would hope that in his Q&A answers, he says, hey, remember, this is the plan. This is what we're encouraging people to do. But, as an example, I was watching yesterday's, he multiple occasions was talking about Virginia's Second Amendment issues, gun rights issues. Okay, I get that. I get that's a big deal right now. But that is not the biggest problem we have, right? Like, and so there's an example like, yes, so Trev, I get you. There are guidelines and they have been produced by members of the government. But when the president is focusing the country's attention on why Jay Inslee is an idiot, why Cuomo should have got his own goddamn ventilators himself, why it's not his job to test everybody. It's all about pointing fingers everywhere else. And, there'll be a time for that. We'll have our retrospective. But right now, I would prefer a president who focuses us on, like, how the hell do we get out of this mess? And then for the economic recovery, I think that whole stimulus has been a real kind of wasted opportunity. And,
I'm like, yeah, so the stimulus, like what SBA ran out of money already. And then anyone that was going to get that, is it $600 or $1,200 check is delayed or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And the other
putting his name on the checks.
If you watch Cuomo and also de Blasio, they were saying New York City is $7 billion more in debt or more out of budget. New York State is 14, 15 billion more. So that's like 21, 22 billion just for New York. And you're going to multiply that on all those other states. Where's all this money not coming from? Because the federal government only gets $3 trillion a year in taxes, and they just spent 2-something trillion. So I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. So there's only, which is why we go back to our original discussion around, like, we have to start thinking about responsibly reopening.
Yeah.
But in order to responsibly reopen, there should be not just guidelines, but there should be federal kind of assurance that those guidelines are at least followed. There should be some minimums. So as an example, what he said was like, look, it's really up to the states. If something's really out of whack, we're going to get involved. I think you need to be a little more specific than that, in my opinion. It's just crazy that like some states are opening their beaches and saying like, just go back to your normal days, and other states
maybe like the federal health people, they can come up with some basic guidelines that can be flexible, can change depending on their analysis and feedback. So for example, if restaurants open up, let's make it a standard that they need to be XYZ separated from other people, and all waiters need to be wearing masks, which is probably the case in Asia. Would you agree something like that would be a nice guideline? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it would be, but we're not. And you know what? If you probably dig, you can find it, because like there were these leaked email threads between various people in the CDC, and they're like super into the details. I think the challenge is if the leadership is more focused on assigning blame and not focusing on the path forward, then you're not going to get the resources, you're not going to get the emphasis, you're not going to get the follow through. I mean, that's what leadership's all about. It's about setting priorities. And when you watch those daily briefings, the priority is not about guidance to states.
Yeah, I want to ask you 2 questions. One, which is dear to my heart, which is like the whole clubbing and entertainment community. And I just read a report that most music festivals and concerts are probably going to be canceled for this summer. And a lot of these festivals, which were going to happen in July or August, might try to push till October, or maybe just push till next year. So basically, big picture, I love clubbing here. And in most clubs anywhere in the world, like for a club to be exciting, needs to be packed, needs to be shoulder to shoulder. And if you're at a table, it needs to be full of 10, 20, 30 girls. That is not social distancing. And then the other bigger picture, are we going to have a Halloween? Are we going to have New Year's Eve?
Halloween's probably okay. But New Year's Eve in the traditional way, I would imagine no. Yeah, for your lifestyle, you're screwed. You and I are the opposites because my life has not changed that much. Like, I still grill burgers in my backyard. I throw the football around with my kids. I walk the dog around the neighborhood. I go for hikes in the forest. And then I fucking stream on YouTube on the weekends. For you, who used to go clubbing like what, more than once a week, right?
Four nights or more.
Yeah, 4 nights a week with packed tables and, you know, strobe lights and glow sticks or whatever you do. That's good. You're fucked. You're gonna be that will be the last. You're gonna have to wait for the vaccine, bro.
Damn.
You're gonna miss out on a year and a half of those social opportunities, let's say.
I know, that sucks. So that's why, I mean, as you know, in the family chats, I've been spending a lot more time like dealing with you know, meditation, mind science and stuff like that, because yeah, I mean, there's no social life. I mean, in a situation where you can't shake hands with people, how do you make out with people? How do you, you know, exchange fluids? You know, cannot.
I've been married for almost 20 years, bro. That's not, let's just say that's not a daily thing anymore.
Yeah. Well, dude, I used to make out with multiple people, you know, in one night, you know.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. That's Damn. I mean, the irony is you have like one of Miami's largest mask collections.
It's sad, man.
And that's so I would imagine that would be an inhibitor.
I know
to your lifestyle.
Yeah, I know, this lovely mask.
Yeah. I mean, you know, certain folks might find that.
I'm very sad. I'm very, very sad about this because it's like I came here to Miami to socialize. Now I'm freaking, I don't know what to do. It's like, maybe, like I said, you know, when the lease is up, maybe I need to think about maybe moving to the woods for 6 months because basically it's dead anyways. Who knows? You know, like I'm just thinking really, really big picture. I mean, if I didn't have a lease right now in this apartment, I would be out of here. I'd live somewhere else, right? Just, it's no difference. Like I live here, I could live in a mountain and enjoy the mountain view.
Yeah. That's right. Because the whole value of a Miami
could be like camping
or a New York or any interesting city or a Vegas, all of those sort of value added capabilities are basically neutralized in this world we're in right now until we have the vaccine. Once you get the vaccine, you can go back to you know, your normal routine.
Okay, but what about the antibody test? So for example, if I knew that I was immune, then I would be going out there like crazy, to be honest. And I think like it would make me like a god.
So if you knew you were immune, a couple things, like you would need to be convinced that it hadn't mutated.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'd need to be convinced that your antibodies will work against the latest version of COVID-19.
Yeah.
Because it could be like the flu. Like there have been years where people got one strain of the flu and then there's another strain.
I hate this thing, man. This is the worst. You're right. This doesn't affect people like you. It's so screwed up, man. It's so screwed. It's so screwed.
Yeah, some people are like, "Oh my God, how are you adjusting?" I'm like, "Adjusting."
They need it adversely affects single people for sure. Single people in cities, like for example, even married people in cities would have a tougher time. You know, like for example, right?
Yeah.
So the least impacted would be people like you that are married in a rural environment. Dude, you got a huge backyard. You got hiking. You're not going to run into people. You know, there should be a story about that. That's like not just the dichotomy between rich and poor, but dichotomy between single and rural. I mean, coupled and rural versus single in metro. I mean, it's a huge change.
Yeah. If you know what would suck if you were, actually it kind of describes you. Sorry. I was about to say, if you were a single dude living by himself, it would suck.
Oh my God! Thank God I have my two dogs. Thank God I have my two dogs.
You do have the dogs. Hey, we have to talk about a topic that has come up, which is the source.
Oh,
The
I thought you.
source.
I was looking. Yes, I want to talk about that. Yes.
The
yes,
source
yes,
of this virus, and I think we should also talk about the implications for Asian Americans
Oh yeah. Yeah, we
living
can
in
talk about that, yeah.
in the United States, right?
So I
first,
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go.
No, you seem like you have some questions.
Okay, yeah. So first, let's talk about the source. Like, I presume you agree that the source is likely Wuhan, China. Do you have a strong opinion about the source, or do you think it? Like, for me, I believe it came from Wuhan. Whether it came from a lab or a wet market, I don't know, but I don't feel like that's crucial right now. I think we need to get the vaccine, and then we need to hold all parties accountable for whatever they did to contribute to this. But, you know, withholding funding from the WHO and calling it the Wuhan virus, like, that doesn't seem productive to me right now. It seems like a distraction.
You know, a few weeks or a month ago when Trump called it the China virus, I was kind of pissed off. But then I deep dived into bigger. Basically, he was defending us because the Chinese foreign minister of whatever, propaganda, whatever that guy, he was saying that was spread through 4 American soldiers, blah, blah, blah. And so no, Trump was saying, no, it came from China. You guys tried to cover it up. And so what I believe it came from Wuhan. I'm not exactly convinced it came from that wet market. Maybe that was patient, not 0, but patient 10 or patient 50, who knows, right? Maybe patient 0 was a worker in that Wuhan bioviral lab that they were studying different viruses, including, bat and coronaviruses and Ebola, and it somehow leaked out. Or maybe they, I think it happened in other situations where those idiots, okay, this has happened for bird flu, they do tests on animals. Then they might have sold those damn animals to the market.
Sold the lab animals?
Yeah. The dead animal, the live animal. Yeah. I think if you Google, that actually happened in the past. Not at that particular lab, I'm saying. You imagine you're earning minimum wage there. You got hundreds of these chickens and lab animals, and they're supposed to burn them. But hey, you know what? Let's just go sell them. Google that for bird flu. It did happen.
But do you think this is what we as a country should be focused on right now? Like, to me, it feels like there'll be time for that. That's not now.
You know what? This is in a, who benefits? Like, so for example, like when I think that China locked down the country January 22nd or so, January 22nd, 23rd. Trump banned it as of February 2nd, but he put the ban in late January, right? But China restricted domestic travel January 22nd, 23rd, actually. The same day that Mom moved or tried out Orlando. She moved from Seattle to Orlando on the 23rd. But I don't believe the Chinese restricted international travel. So those guys, think about this. They don't want the virus to spread locally, but they're okay with it spreading internationally.
It was easier.
Now think about it this way. Imagine if it didn't spread internationally. I think the racial epithets against Asian Americans and the fear mongering against Asians would even be higher than now. Because basically China would be a pariah. Basically it would be like, a no-go zone.
Yeah, so a couple of points. Before we get into it, I need to thank James Abrams for hooking me up with a super chat. Let me give him the nerd gong. Woo! Thanks, James. Appreciate your support. As you can tell, my camera is a little blurry because my webcam broke. So your money is going towards my new webcam, which apparently in the tech world is like buying toilet paper. There's a long delay of availability of webcams and mics. But so thank you, James. But to get to your point, I agree with you. There's actually a Nerds for Humanity video where we go through the timeline And you are right that domestic travel within China was locked down before international travel in and out of China.
I can't believe that, man. It's
and
horrible.
so if you were in Wuhan, you could fly to Milan or London or Singapore, but you could not take a train to Beijing.
That's wrong, Tom. No matter how you cut it, that
totally
is
wrong.
so wrong. So
It's totally wrong. Totally wrong. Totally wrong.
So,
Now,
so either that's incompetent or they wanted it to spread.
No, they didn't want it to spread. I think it's just incompetent and also worried about the impact on their economy. I mean, that's a pretty big deal for an international, the number 2 economy in the world to shut off all international travel. I mean, this is now look at them. For the first time in like 50 years, they had like negative growth, right? So, but I agree, that's some BS. So they should be held to account. Like, if you're not willing to let the Wuhan folks go to Beijing and Guangzhou, they sure as hell shouldn't be coming to New York and Zurich.
Yeah.
So there should be some consequences for that. I think secondly, if it's not a lab thing and it really comes from these wet markets with the exotic animal meat and everything, like there needs to be some international standards around food preparation, delivery, and hygiene, and farming and wildlife meat. And it should be like, hey, if you want to be part of the international community, there's got to be some minimum standards, because it's no longer a case of like a bunch of dudes in your own country dying, but it impacts everybody. And I would say that's not just a China thing. I would say that should apply to everybody, because like even in the US, like some of our like food production, like we always have the E. coli stuff and like the weird stuff we do to the animals for like the hormones and whatever. Like I think everybody should start to take more accountability and responsibility. But that, you know what that means, is going to be more expensive. You know? Well,
yeah, but you know, SARS was also
easy for you to say, whoa, wait, hold on now. Not so. Because if someone's barely able to pay their rent and now they're going to have to pay double for their meat because of all of these new requirements, they're going to have even fewer choices and worse nutrition.
Mm.
Does that not concern you?
Safety and health and welfare of the whole world concern me.
And so if all of the people that are under the poverty line can basically have half the buying power for their food, like that's not going to work, right? That's not, even if you want to be self-interested, that's not a path to a sustainable society. Like there will be instability.
Yeah, if they don't get enough food, then they're not going to be so healthy. So apparently I was watching some, the Black Plague, was throughout history, even during the Roman Empire, if they got less grain in Rome, people got more sick because they're not so healthy. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think this is part of the reason why so many of us in the Yang Gang are supportive of basic income. There needs to be a floor, and it's not, people think like, oh, hey, you guys are just such bleeding hearts. But there's also like, if you are doing well in life and you want a stable society, having poor people starve in the streets, it's not going to end well for the rich. I'll tell you that right now. If I were barely able to make it and people are driving by in their like stretched Teslas, at some point I'm going to be like,
Yeah, I don't know, man. But I don't really like that UBI thing.
All right. So what about there's been some criticism of anger and frustration directed at Asian Americans, like you see on Twitter and stuff, these videos of people getting beat up or restaurants getting vandalized and like Chinese virus go home. Do you feel like that's a problem?
I haven't experienced anything like that in the last few months, but I experienced something I mentioned to you, maybe even on this chat in January, mid-January, late January. I was in a hotel lobby daytime and I was coming down the lift, and a couple were getting into the lift as I was coming out, and the girl like screamed in shock when she saw me. And then the husband or boyfriend's like, "Hey dude, why the girl, why are you overreacting so much?" But yeah, I mean, I did kind of sense it then, but now that, I mean, again, this kind of goes back to what I said 10, 15 minutes ago. Now that everyone's contagious or everyone's infected, I felt no, fear from other people.
Well, let me ask you this. Would you agree that there have been documented cases of vandalism to Asian American businesses?
Yes.
And where like there's graffiti that's clearly kind of racial.
I think people are afraid, and it gets down to that whole like uncertain, and they're looking for a scapegoat. I mean, I'm not going to say who can blame them. They're ignorant, but they're pissed off. I mean, they're looking, they have a sense of outrage, I guess.
So when you hear Pompeo like demand that the G7 refer to it as the Chinese virus, and when you hear, different sort of leaders call it the Wuhan virus and the Chinese, it's just a problem from China. We've blocked all the flights from China. I think part of the nuance here is that China is a state, but it's also Chinese as an ethnicity. And I think Asian Americans get caught up in this, which is like, if you're not super kind of familiar with that nuance, it could be easy to conclude like, oh, all these people with black hair are like eating bats in their backyard now.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, I mean, the Chinese government didn't do themselves any favors. I mean, as you know, the number of cases, deaths jumped up 40-50% in Wuhan, and no one in the Western media really believes those numbers at all that have come out from China, right? Come on. So we all take it with a grain of salt. So, I mean, that people are fearful and pissed off. I mean, should they be pissed off? Should they call it the UK virus? I don't think so. Should they call it the Italian virus? Should they blame the Italians? I don't blame the Italians, but I mean, if you're looking for someone to blame,
So, but there is a name for it. It's called COVID-19 or coronavirus. Those were fine names. Wouldn't you agree that why was the president pushing to, and I think the answer was he got offended when some idiot from China blamed the US. But the problem is you can blame the US, you can be mad about that, but the implications of then saying, it's a China virus, it's a Chinese virus, it affects other people like you and me.
Yeah.
So because of someone's bruised ego, there was just, it's the opposite of what George W. Bush did. After 9/11, George W., one of the first things he did was he said, hey, let's be clear. This was an attack from Muslim extremists. This was not an attack from the entire religion. There are many Muslim Americans that are serving in the military, who are building businesses, who are raising families, and are just as American as everyone else. But I've not heard anything like that from not just the president, but anyone in the federal government. Have you? Like no, that it should come from someone. If they've been doing these daily briefings for weeks now. Just one of them, they should say, hey, by the way, we've noticed an increase in anti-Asian American crime.
Trump did say that. Trump did say that. He there was one time he said something to that effect. Exactly.
I think he was asked about it. And what did he say? Was it a full-throated defense
No, he was like, Asian Americans are part of our culture and they're part of their American. Like, you got to pull the clip.
All right, I will look for it while we're. So the other thing we should talk about is what do you think about the 2020 race? Are you very encouraged by the leadership that you've been seeing, such that you would like another 4 years of this administration?
Let me just say it straight out. I support Donald J. Trump for re-election for president of the United States for, he's going to be 45 or 46 then? He's 45 right now, right? So, yeah. So, if you think about it from a financial point of view, this is one of my left-wing friends said this, that she had a conversation with her other progressive friends. And she said, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but she said that they were talking and said, like, in this financial situation, who would you want other than Donald Trump to manage us through this crisis? Because he's been through so many personal bankruptcies. He has all this experience.
Oh my God. Oh my God. So we've gone from, because I remember 4 or 5 years ago when I was talking about his bankruptcies with you, you were like, oh, those bankruptcies are just in paper. He's a great billionaire. And now your pitch is, oh no, we have the expert in bankruptcies.
No, go. So he managed to, deal with the banks. He managed to, deal with restructuring and layoffs that he had. I mean, he got through at least 2 bankruptcies, right? Mm-hmm. So think about the U.S. right now. I mean, is in deep financial problem. There's a huge budget deficit. Who better than Donald Trump to lead us? To be honest, I can't think of someone with better experience.
So what's he going to do? Like call up Deutsche Bank and do one of those like sleazy deals? I don't think you can do that when you're a country. I mean, I would.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Come on, you know that.
Okay, here's what
debt forgiveness, restructurings.
Here's what I would argue. As the most powerful and crucial country in the world and the most important economy in the world, I don't think we're going to have a problem around debt forgiveness. Like that's the last. We are by definition too big to fail. However, I do think a leader that can help us restart the economy and grow the economy and empower people and get businesses confident again, that's a very different set of skills than having the Taj Mahal go bankrupt in Atlantic City and tell your vendors you're not going to pay them anymore. Like he would actually, I think the skill set of basically telling all your debtors, all your creditors that you're not going to pay them. That's yes, I agree. He has that skill.
Take a haircut, restructure the timeline and all that.
Right.
Cut expenses. I'm sure he knows how to cut expenses. Right.
Well, he hasn't done that because our deficit is a record high now. It's $1 trillion.
Yeah, because we have to do all the stimulus too, right?
This is before COVID. We had record more of a annual debt increase than under Obama.
My God, I can't even imagine what's going to happen right now. We just spent $2.2 trillion,
and it's gone like that. But good thing 50 billion went to the airlines. Like, why didn't it go to the employees? Why didn't it go to the citizens?
My God. Why do we even need to? Do we need all these airlines? I mean, like even if we just let them go bankrupt and someone else, some private equity firm will buy the assets and rehire everyone. So basically, you're just protecting the shareholders. You should screw the shareholders, wipe out the shareholders.
Well, I think you're making actually a sound conservative argument, but we don't have a conservative president. Like what he did for the airlines is corporate socialism.
God.
If I, as a man has a big part of me is libertarian, I would say, you know what? Sorry, United Airlines. Like, if nobody wants your service, like
nobody wants it.
That's life in the big city.
Yeah,
and rather than having all of these elaborate rules for who gets aid and who doesn't get aid, and this huge government bureaucracy is going to develop this new job training program and all this shit. They should just give that money directly to the hands of the people and let
You know
the
what they should
market
have given?
decide.
They should have given $50 billion, not given, but given it to Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway, manage it on behalf of the U.S. He would have distributed to the airlines and gotten warrants and pieces back. Did we get any warrants? Did the U.S. government get any warrants on these? Any
No.
upside?
And-
oh my God.
No,
See?
and then there's very little oversight too.
Oh my God. No, seriously, like why didn't they just go to freaking Warren Buffett and say, here's $50 billion that we're going to allocate for the airlines. Can you manage it for us? And I'm sure he
Well,
would.
hey, that's way too much money in one private citizen's hands. I'd rather take that $2 trillion. If you run the numbers, you could have given every American adult $1,000 a month for 10 months. That would do more than whatever the fuck they're doing now. I don't know. Like some people got their checks. It's one check. It's one fucking check.
And
Where's
now,
the
now
other
it's
one?
April.
Where's the rest
yeah,
of
yeah,
it?
yeah.
It's like where's the rest? So
And
anyway,
so, yeah,
but
that
you're
they're going to
happy.
be. I mean,
You're happy with this
No.
president.
I am happy with the president. I mean, there's things that I would have done differently for that stimulus program or that CARES Act. I don't think it's
Mhm.
properly managed. Like, honestly, I'm not a big fan of UBI. Okay, and maybe I'm gonna regret saying this, but maybe you're right. Like, maybe it would have been better off doing it your way, like 10 months of $1,000 to everyone, just
Mm-hmm.
give it out, rather than I don't want to bail out companies that don't need, that no one's asking for their service. Who wants to fly right now? No one's gonna fly right now.
And why should a bunch of government bureaucrats decide what industries are worth saving?
It's crazy.
Like, isn't that the opposite of capitalism? So now they're saying, well, we're going to have a farm recovery bill. Okay. Well, who's going to decide? Is it going to be the big agribusinesses, the small farmers? Like, what are going to be the rules? How much are they going to get? How are they going to determine it? It's all of this opportunity for inefficiency at a minimum, but maybe even corruption.
Yeah.
So, the United Airlines shareholders got bailed out, but I don't even know if the United Airlines employees are going to benefit. They're still going to get fired.
Yeah, I mean, I think the rationale behind bailing out those type of companies is that, with the hope, or do they have to keep them on the payroll? No, they furloughed. I mean, also,
No, I mean,
like a lot of these retail stores, like department stores, are going to go bankrupt. They should just let them go. I mean, like people are comfortable doing, everything's been moving online anyways. I mean, bricks and mortar is disappearing. I mean, they got to just stop supporting stuff that's not going to work anyways. Like, this is a big wake up call. I mean, it's kind of a big, it's fast tracking what was going to happen 10, 20 years, but happening all in 1 year.
yes. And so with all of that said, what would you say is Trump's plan to solve this? So we've got he's going to build a wall so to keep the Mexicans out. He's going to make them pay for it. And then we're supposed to get health care for everyone, but cheaper and better than Obamacare. We're supposed to eliminate the national debt and have record economic growth. Those were the promises.
You like to remember all that stuff. I remember we had those talks.
I do remember it, right? And you said, oh, wait till you see it. Thank God we don't have Obama anymore. I don't know, man. I don't feel like he's really got a plan or equipped to deal with. I mean, it's a big job right now. It was always a big job, but this is like the hardest job ever. Now, for some in the audience who are pro Yang, but also former Trump voters, I know what they're thinking. They're saying, Tom, but look at Biden.
Yeah, Biden. I was going to say Biden's a complete idiot. He's an idiot. Dude, oh my God!
So this is the state of the country. We're choosing
between
two old
stumbles,
dudes.
gets shit wrong, like blah, blah, blah,
Okay, which would you rather have? Someone who stutters and is a little bit shaky, or someone who lies repeatedly?
Well, obviously, I supported Donald Trump before, so
So you're just gonna go with the team again?
I'm trying to figure out how I can volunteer. But I mean, I've been wanting to volunteer.
So you went to a MAGA rally.
I did.
Remember, I told you that, oh, you love Trump so much, but once you go to a rally and you see
I cried
the
at
environment,
the rally.
you
I
cried.
I cried.
Why did you cry?
I was so patriotic. It was a beautiful place, and it was like going to a high school, like what do you call that?
Pep
Reunion?
rally.
Pep rally
Pep
or
rally.
high school? No. Homecoming thing. Yeah.
Oh. Why? What was it like?
It was basically Americana, dude. There's like normal people. It's probably people you would look like you live nearby, like if you're living in America, multicultural, multi-generational, different ages, teenagers, little kids, adults. Everyone was pleasant. I didn't have any,
And what was it?
You were concerned that there would be racial epithets against me, but no, not at all, dude.
Oh, I bet now there might be. With the China virus, like Mr. China virus, right?
Oh my gosh. Oh my God, Tom.
You wear your Wuhan United shirt on. So you went there, and how long were you there? How long? Like I'm honestly curious. Like what? I only see snippets of those
So they tell
rallies.
you to show up like a few hours beforehand, which I didn't. So I showed up maybe a half an hour or 1 hour beforehand. And then I got the worst seat. So basically it's first come, first serve. So the seats that are obviously lower and closer to the stage fill up fast. And by the time I got there, I was like all the way on the high end, away from the stage, So yeah, you go in there, they do a screening, they check you, and yeah, that's it. I mean,
And then what was it like? You got in there, and then there's like music, or there's like a bunch of speakers, and then the big main event comes out. It's like a concert.
They're playing rock and roll music,
Mm-hmm.
like 1980s, 90s rock and roll, that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they have people talk. It's very uplifting. It made me very proud to be American.
What were some of the things you heard that really resonated with you?
Honestly, Tom, whatever you see on TV is pretty much what he talks about in these rallies. So I didn't really super pay attention. I can't crystallize what he talked about or what they talked about. But I will say this, that like the place was packed. It was packed. And I can say, yeah, he was talking, oh yeah, the fake media, the fake people. It's true, because the stadium was completely packed, but I'm sure that when they showed it, they didn't show that it was packed. Maybe they just show him. They don't probably even show it nowadays. It's a packed stadium, dude. It's packed. And outside it was packed. And there's other overflow people outside watching on the big screen.
Yeah. And what were there like some huge applause lines or moments where everybody was like screaming, or was it just like overall?
Yeah, there's typical. It was like homecoming. They even had the clapping or the waving the hands, the wave. They did the wave and all that.
Yeah. So if I had to summarize from what I'm hearing from you, it sounds like the rally, part of it was this feeling of belonging and feeling of unity and feeling of like patriotism. And
patriotism is huge.
Right.
Yeah, patriotism.
Right.
Yeah.
But not a lot of policy and data and charts.
Tom, I was just very touched during the whole thing. So, I mean, like I was crying. I had to hide my tears. I had to, because I didn't want to look like a wuss and stuff, Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. All right. And so if there were another rally, you wouldn't go now, though, because of the corona, right?
No, I a few months ago, right before the lockdown came, I was invited because like I donate. So they invited me to some special rally for people that potentially volunteer, but I didn't go. I should have went. Shoot. Now I want to help Trump out.
So you are planning on volunteering for the general election?
Yeah, but I don't know how I can help. Yeah, I want to volunteer. I mean,
I mean, I guess you could do like phone banking and text banking and virtual stuff.
Yeah, I don't mind.
And what will your pitch be if you talk to someone who's undecided and they're like, I don't know, I'm struggling to decide between Trump and Biden. What will you tell them?
Look, Trump has done a great job the last 4 years. People thought that he was, obviously not capable of running the country, or he's going to do all these bad things. Look how he's stood up for the trade in terms of gotten us concessions with the U.S., Mexico, Canada agreement. He's renegotiated trade deals with Europe. He's made the European people contribute more to NATO, and he's had this fantastic trade war with China. And he's not taking a backseat to China anymore. He's making China, play fair. And so this is the president that's getting us, or gotten through us through the coronavirus. And you don't want to rock the boat right now and have that sleepy Joe, take charge in 2021. Go with Donald Trump and Mike Pence.
Oh, wow. That's actually not bad. I mean, I don't agree with anything you said, but I could see.
That's actually not bad, but I don't agree with anything you just said.
I don't agree with any, because I could see an undecided person saying like, oh yeah, that all sounds great. Like standing up for America and really showing the Chinese that we mean business and all that kind of stuff. Like that is compelling, but I would argue, let me, since I put you on the spot, let me see what I would say to an undecided person. I would probably say like the most important thing to me about picking a president is integrity and leadership and competence managing a really incredible crisis. The other important thing is building a strong team of capable people who can speak truth to power and be focused on what's best for the country. And I don't see Trump doing any of those things. And while I think Biden has his pros and cons, when I compare the two, I think Biden's team will be better. I think Biden will be more honest. And I think Biden will take the job more seriously. And America deserves that. America deserves a real leader, someone who thinks about the country and not just about themselves.
So, Tom, I mean, if I have to say a critique, that's very textbook, boring and bland. It was not exciting me at all, to be honest. And it's like, oh yeah, Joe Biden, whatever. Dude, oh my God. And
it would have been much better if it were Andrew fucking Yang, dude.
I can't wait until we demolish the Biden with the Beau Biden. Was it the Beau Biden? What's his corrupt son's name?
Hunter?
Hunter Biden, yeah. Hunter Biden, who had sexual relations with his brother's wife after the brother passed away.
Did I just hear a Trump supporter telling me about morality? You want to go there?
No.
He's on his third wife, dude.
Yeah, but he's not dating his brothers. He's not dating his brother's wives, Come on, that's strange.
Okay, I don't know any.
That's just strange. Come on.
That's
like you dating Joe's wife or Joe dating your wife. That's so strange. So strange. This is strange. And the thing is, they both had kids exactly like you guys. That's weird, dude.
You know what? That's his son. We're not electing Hunter to the White House, right?
Oh, but yeah, you're gonna if
I mean, are you telling wait. Are you telling me Don Jr. and that other sort of strange, like kind of not so, that sort of pale looking one? You think you want to, are we going to evaluate them to decide if we should reelect Trump?
They're not corrupt like the Hunter.
Oh my God, they're not corrupt, dude. Who was at the meeting with the Russians? Don Jr., Jared Kushner? So because you don't like whatever the Biden son's dating policy was, you're okay with meeting with a foreign government representative to try and get dirt on your opponent?
I don't want to go into all that because he was cleared. Trump and the whole family was cleared of all the wrongdoing from the Mueller and the stupid impeachment thing, the fake impeachment.
No. What are you going to try and say? Oh, complete exoneration? Are you going to try and play that?
Yeah, I'm going to play that card.
Okay, because that's bullshit. Because if you read the Mueller report, there's reams of misconduct. Now, it doesn't mean that the report says that therefore the president should be impeached, but it is not a complete exoneration. Did you read the Mueller report?
No, I didn't read the Mueller report.
Then how do you know? How do you know that it exonerated him? What makes you think it did?
Well, all I know is that there was a deep state and that there are FBI agents plotting the demise of Donald Trump as soon as he got elected.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah.
The deep state, huh?
Yeah. There was the Asian FBI agent. What's his name?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Dude, now why are you calling him the Asian FBI agent, dude? Fuck me. So
whose wife was like on a super PAC or something like that. Yeah. Interesting.
All right. So your position is that you think that the Bidens are more corrupt than the Trumps.
I say that the Trump is not corrupt. He hasn't done anything wrong in the government. He hasn't benefited like that. Obviously, Hunter Biden, clearly, dude, he had no experience in energy or Ukraine. And he got, he was basically there to kind of like whitewash the whole situation. And the guy that owned that company was like a criminal. I mean, come on.
So what experience does Jared Kushner have? He led the American Middle East peace process.
Yeah, but he's not like getting money for it.
Oh, you don't think that Jared Kushner is going to benefit from his role? What about Ivanka? What's her experience? I would argue that Hunter Biden serving on some Ukrainian oil board is completely legal, but very distasteful, and I don't support it.
Very questionable. And,
yeah, it's questionable.
Right. And when the father was in charge, like the czar appointed by Obama to oversee money for Ukraine. Come on.
Okay, so it's questionable, but frankly, like that happens all the time in DC. I'm not excusing it.
Really?
I'm not excusing it. I'm not excusing it. But at the same time, if you look at the Trump cabinet and the Trump White House right now, like what is he on his like fourth chief of staff? Like it was Wrights Priebus, and then it was John Kelly, and then it was acting Mick Mulvaney, and now there's some new dude, right?
Mark Meadows.
Meadows, that's right. And then you look at like where is Mad Dog?
We all serve at the pleasure of the president. That's what they would say.
Okay, yeah. And why does the president keep turning over his team?
He likes to keep it like The Apprentice. Keep you guys guessing.
Yeah, but it's not The Apprentice. It's our country, dude. It's not a fucking show. Like, anyway, Peter, it's always a pleasure having you on the show.
Yeah. Do the people like it? I mean, because I can't see if people are watching.
Dude, yeah. No, we have 120 concurrents right now on YouTube, and then it probably means there's a few hundred on Twitter. And I think what we'll do before we wrap up.
Yeah, I hope I didn't put my foot in my mouth on any subjects. I hope I won't get banned from China or something like that. Oh my goodness.
No, I doubt it. But I think you represented the pro-Trump point of view effectively. And let's see if people in the audience have any questions before we wrap up. So if you guys have questions for Peter or for me, let me know in the chat, and I'll try and hit them. And while we're waiting for any questions that roll in, let me ask you this one final question, Peter.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to say 2 or 3 things that you think Trump hasn't done well, what would those be?
Oh, I think probably he should have blocked the whole world when he blocked China. And he probably should have had more. He should have activated some task force. When was the task force activated? So was it the same time as the quarantine?
Yeah, it was like a
Is
week or it was like a week or two after the China after the China ban.
Yeah, I would have done that like a little bit more in tune, and then like also maybe started advising the states on containment, because try to contain the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's two
fair.
things, right?
All right,
Yeah.
all right. So, hey, a question: did you buy the gun? You were. I think last time you were on the show, you were thinking of buying a gun.
Well, I thought I was going to keep that secret. Remember, we talked in the family chat about that. Yeah.
Well, no, but you must
Did I
have
talk
mentioned
about
it in the last live stream too. So if you
Oh,
want,
my
we
God.
can move on to the next question.
Well, I got a 9mm.
Right, you did. And interestingly enough, just so people know how often we agree, we couldn't even agree on the gun of choice. We had very strong disagreements on that one. A lot of back and forth on WhatsApp about why you chose unwisely, but that's fine.
I got a green laser semi-automatic.
Yes, you should have gotten a Glock or just a wheel gun, but that's fine. You enjoy what you've got, and as long as
enjoy
you
a challenge.
you enjoy a challenge, you like guns that jam. That's good for you. All right, here's another question. Okay. So a lot of people are asking, who is the older brother?
Well, Tom's the older brother, of course.
Go F yourself.
Tom's older than me by 7 years, 6, 7 years, right?
Yeah, that's very funny. So I'm actually the youngest of three. Peter is the
Oh
oldest
my
of
God.
three.
Please.
Okay, and Peter likes to say that he's what? Are you saying you're the youngest? Is that your shtick? Is that like no? There was no collusion, no quid pro quo. All right. Here's the next question. Oh, can Biden win? What do you think?
No
what do you
way.
think? I know you don't support him, but what do you think are the chances?
I mean, he's going to be. It's not going to be a landslide victory for Trump. I mean, it's still going to be very tight,
Right. So do you think it'll be closer than him versus Hillary?
That's a big question. I don't know. I mean, because like we had a great electoral college win, but we seem to be losing some ground in some of those purple states or red states. I don't know. I mean, it's a hard. We had a great run in 2018. And so to do better than 2018 would be great. I would love for us to get even more votes. I highly doubt that we're going to turn any really, really deep blue states like California, New York. So, yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about 2016, right? Or you?
Oh yeah, 2016. Sorry.
I know you MAGA guys are big into numbers and facts, but
Right.
My prediction is that as much as I have reservations about Biden, he will win.
Oh my God, really?
He will not win by much. It'll be kind of like the equivalent of what happened to Hillary, but it'll be just flipped, and it'll be a couple of states, like Wisconsin and Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, maybe a little bit of Florida. And I would say the reason is that Trump didn't win by much the first time, and I think that he's even weaker now with the economy, which is probably why he needs to pin the blame on someone as soon as he can, so he can disinfect himself of this mess that we're in.
True.
All right, here's the next question. Ooh, this is an interesting one. Pete's my window just jumped, but it's Pete's pick for after 2020. So 2024, obviously I presume you believe that there's only going to be 2 terms of Trump. That you do you still believe in the Constitution, or does that not apply to Donald?
No, I think he will not run for a 3rd term. Yeah.
And do you have anyone that you would like to see follow in Trump's footsteps, assuming that he won?
Well, I think at some point, Ivanka Trump, is Ivanka the girl, the daughter?
Yes, that's the one.
At some point, she will run.
There's another daughter, but Ivanka's the one that's in the White House.
Yeah, at some point, Ivanka will run.
And you would like that?
Yeah.
So Jared Kushner would be the first gentleman.
Yeah.
Ivanka and Jared.
Yeah.
The all-American couple.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because she ran a fashion purse company, is that why?
Well, Tom, I think she embodies a lot of about Americana. You know?
Yeah. Okay.
Family, you know, good couple, smart, good looking.
All right. That's okay. You're like Trump. You want people to look a certain way. That's very important to you. That's why I think Trump was very concerned about he didn't like Bolton because he didn't like the mustache or whatever.
You know, no, one thing is because I'm in the clubbing industry. I mean, so clubbing is all about, you know, how you look, how you dress, you know. So it's like, you know, it's normal. I'm kind of used to that.
And you think that should be applied to government?
I'm just giving you, you know,
All right.
You asked me how I was like thinking like the Trump.
All right. So here's a question. How will UBI, universal healthcare, affect overpopulation? And what's your take on the size of the population?
See, that's the thing. I think UBI is bad because it encourages more people that shouldn't be having babies to have babies. It's not going to encourage the billionaires to have babies because UBI is going to go out to the billionaires and Wall Street people as well. So they're not going to like go out, oh, I got $1,000 UBI, I'm going to go out and have kids. You're basically going to encourage the people that shouldn't be having kids to have more kids. The people that you should want to somehow encourage to have kids would be the billionaires because they're successful people and all that, right? But you want to basically encourage the unsuccessful people to have kids. So I don't know what the heck's going on.
So there's an interesting argument that if you look at the birth rates, generally people who have more resources have fewer kids.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah.
So if everyone has a floor and the poorest people have more resources, why are you so convinced that they would have more kids? Because that's not what the data would suggest if you look at today.
No, I agree with you on your data point, and this is exactly what I mentioned. I mean, if you're in Wall Street, if you're like a music star, you know, if you're inherited wealth, your propensity to have kids is less than if you're making the bare minimum wage, you're working in a factory, you know, you're doing gig economy, that type of thing. Correct. Basically, that's what you're saying. But I'm saying like those people are still going to have kids. So maybe like, for example, they shouldn't be having kids. So like I said, maybe give out UBI, but basically if they promise not to have kids.
Oh my God. All right. That's let me give you a different point of view.
I mean, because I'm also against humanitarian aid for the same reasons.
Right. So there's another argument, which is that when you feel like you have a strong financial future and a stable financial future, you start making decisions that are more optimized for the welfare of the family and the kind of future prosperity. And that's why people with resources often don't have a lot of kids, because they're trying to concentrate resources and on a smaller number. And the opposite is also true. If you feel like you have a very bleak future, the idea of like, oh, well, if I have another kid, I'm going to have less resources for the first two. It's not a big deal because you're so sort of underwater that the formula changes a little. So I could see an argument that people would actually feel like they have a better long-term financial outlook and therefore have fewer kids. But I don't know. Like, this is where we're in uncharted territory. Next question. are you floating your dogs in the jacuzzi? So clearly Cisara watched the first live stream.
Wow. Yeah. I am. The first few days, I was getting a lot of blowback from my mom and her retirement home friends. Oh, you can't put the dogs in the jacuzzi. It's too hot, But the dogs are so used to it now. Let me tell you, it's no cruelty to animals. So here we got 89 degrees temperature in Miami. The hot tub is set for 97. So it's not like basically the human body. My human body is 98.6 degrees, something like that, right? Tom, correct me.
Yeah.
What's the human body? All right. So if the dogs are comfortable in my lap, they're going to be comfortable in the hot tub. The same temperature as being in my lap. And what happens is I understand that the coronavirus has a harder time existing in temperatures higher than 80 degrees or 25 degrees Celsius, correct? And because I have chemicals like chlorine that are supposed to kill off bacteria and viruses, I soak the dogs in there for 15 minutes every night. Now they're so well trained that as soon as I open up or go to the jacuzzi, because I have to walk up some steps, the dogs follow me and they wait outside the jacuzzi area until I open the jacuzzi cover, and then I put them into the jacuzzi. Yeah.
What is the temperature of the jacuzzi?
Right now it's set for 97 because I had set it for
Okay, yeah.
101. I lowered it a little bit just to whatever.
Yeah. I mean, the human, I think we're like 97, 98. Dogs are around 100. So yeah, as long as you're not like turning it up, I guess. Yeah. Oh, so here, Brock was saying, remember I told you about either get a revolver or a Glock? Now you didn't go with the Glock. You went with a Smith & Wesson MP, right?
Yeah.
So someone also believes that you should not have picked. But I mean, that's what that Smith & Wesson is fine. It's not terrible. Do you think that Trump should be seen as an enlightened dictator? Like that could be a good thing. And some people would argue there's a benevolent dictator. Is that your view, or do you actually believe in a republic?
No, he's a president. He's not a dictator.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Do you believe that he should have more authority to tell states what to do than he does currently?
He should have whatever authority the Constitution, give him. And we're not about to change the Constitution right now. So maybe, he spoke wrongly last week and he course corrected. At first he said he was the ultimate decision maker on when the economy opens up, but then he realized obviously that's not how it works, And then number two is even if that was how it works, every state's got to operate differently. So, if every state, can figure out what is best to do for that particular state. So, yeah.
All right. So you're a pro-Constitution.
Yeah.
So the Constitution does require that cabinet members are approved by the Senate. And he has a large number of acting people.
Yeah,
because acting doesn't have to be approved. Do you think that's okay?
That's fine. And that's like what is the opposite? Then you don't have anyone. Of course, you have acting. Yeah.
No. Yeah. But you don't have acting for like a year. You put a real nominee up and have them go through the confirmation process.
Well, you guys are slowing the confirmation process down. That's why he's thinking about pushing it back, right? Or just rolling it forward, something like that. Right?
No, that's that. So are you saying that the reason why Trump has so many acting members of his cabinet is simply because he's unable to get confirmation hearings? You think it's all the Democrats' fault?
I think, honestly, it's easier to remove and replace acting heads, right?
That's true. That's the real truth. It's not the Constitution. It's actually the opposite. He doesn't like to have advice and consent from the legislative branch. If it were his way, he wouldn't have to deal with the Congress or Senate, which is why I think Ward Smith's question is quite apropos. And if you want that,
he found a workaround. I mean, I guess so Ward may be onto something in a way because Trump found a workaround, so it's like, this way, he doesn't have to go through the whole confirmation process. And, if he doesn't like the person, he can replace it very quickly, blah, blah, blah.
But that's not honoring the spirit of the Constitution. Like the spirit of the Constitution is that we have to have these congressional hearings for a reason. There have to be confirmations. They're called confirmations. It's a
Yeah,
co-equal
smart.
branch.
Smart.
He's smart.
move.
Okay, so him is back to his Deutsche Bank days. All right, here we go. Dino wants to know, what would it take for you to stop supporting Trump? Like, if he shot someone on Fifth Avenue, obviously you would go for Biden.
Yeah.
Is there anything other than that?
I was pretty much on the fence when he kept calling it the China virus, because obviously I'm Chinese. Until I delved into it, I understood, the whole rationale. He was pissed off, and he was pissed off with the Chinese government. Maybe he should have called it Chinese government virus. But no,
That would have been better.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think, I support Trump.
Okay.
And Biden is too horrible candidate. I can't imagine. But he's better than Bernie. Bernie's a socialist.
Right. But you're okay with bailing out industries with taxpayer money?
No, I'm not okay with that. I'm not down with that at all.
But since he is doing that, but that's not going to stop you from supporting him.
I think any president would, Obama also bailed out the banks, right? Or, and Bush bailed out the banks. So, I mean, it's kind of like, if they don't, I guess if you had all these airlines failing, then maybe people would be panicking more. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like if you're going to have to bail out an industry, the world financial industry is pretty important. But like Continental Airlines, whatever, they always go bankrupt. Yeah. All right. Do you have an opinion about Nikki Haley?
Well, you mean the former UN ambassador?
Yeah. From
has she turned on Trump, or is she still pro-Trump?
Oh, so that's the criteria. Loyalty. All right, I think you answered that question.
Well, no, I'm asking you the question. Has she turned on Trump?
No, she's been very careful about not being anti-Trump, but she has distanced herself nicely by leaving the administration, but on good terms. So
that's good. That's good.
So someone is saying VM is not a fan of Ivanka. Like, I know you talked about, you feel like Ivanka comes across as like very American.
How would you American?
Yeah, okay. There are a lot of Americans. What is American to you?
No, I mean, doesn't she look like someone you would recognize from like your high school? I guess because you went to all boys school, so you wouldn't know. But I'm saying, you went to a co-ed high school, she might be like the homecoming queen or the cheerleader or something like that,
Right, and therefore she should be in the Oval Office.
There's many reasons. I think you want to break the glass ceiling, right?
Oh, great. I'm sure that's your key motivation there. All right. Jesus Christ. All right, here we go. Let me find another question. Oh, what has been your sort of social productivity in the quarantine?
Oh, I do see that. I see that in your screen. It said, have you been lucky in quarantine?
Getting lucky.
Yes, I have, but I wear the mask.
You do not.
Yes. And I do it in the hot tub.
Oh.
Where it kills all the germs.
But you have the mask on your face?
And also my glasses. I wear like glasses.
You do. And what about the other party?
Mask.
And did you guys agree? Was that awkward?
That was my terms, man. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to risk my life.
Interesting. So, mask, safety glasses, in the hot tub. Where the
but I've also done it. Yeah, I've also done it outside of the hot tub. But basically, as long as you have the mask on, it's fine, right?
I guess so.
And then I take a hot shower afterwards.
Oh, that'll take care of it then. That's good. You take the hot shower.
With soap.
Okay. There you go. All right.
But yeah, the hot tub actually is very safe. Think about it. I mean, like the hot tub is meant for 4 to 8 people and to kill germs. So like The corona is not a very strong thing. It's, you know, in that hot tub, there's chemicals. It's hot. It's gonna die.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, you know what? Hey, dude, it's a free country. It sounds like you took precautions. I'm impressed that you kept the mask and the glasses on. It's not a common.
It's not comfortable, dude. It's hot. I really have to give a shout out to all of these first responders and doctors. I mean, it's hot, man. Especially if you're breathing, you know, hard. You know.
Yeah, I don't.
It's not comfortable. It's a turn off. It's a turn off for me. I don't enjoy it, to be honest. I mean, it's not enjoyable. It's horrible.
No. I mean, I guess I think there are probably, like anything, there are probably some people who do find that very stimulating.
Well, we discussed it. We've done it a few times. Basically, we find it's very safe. So we've never ever kissed, but we've done other stuff.
Yeah.
So strange. That's the world we're living in right now. That's the freaking so sad. That's the world we're living in. So sad.
That is that's
horrible.
That is a image that will be difficult to erase from my memory. Okay, here we got to move on. I don't want to talk about my brother in the hot tub with a mask on. What's your take on? Remember back in the day? I don't think they have it anymore, but China at one point had a one-child policy. Are you pro one child?
For U.S. or for China? You know, China. What China does. What China does. I'm not Chinese. I'm American.
Okay, so would you support a U.S. Child policy limit?
Yeah, if you're on welfare or UBI or anything like that, yeah.
That you could have up to a maximum number of children.
If you're on social welfare, yeah. If you feel like you want to live off the public dole, then yeah, we want to limit that. We don't want to encourage that. Why do we want to encourage that?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a tough one. I just wonder if that would really do what you think it would do. I think we would need to see some data. I have a feeling that as people have more money, they actually have fewer kids.
Well, let me tell you one thing, and I'm going to get probably hated by your audience for this, okay? Because I've actually done some studies. I want you to do some studies. Look at the growth rates, population growth in developing countries over the last 10, 15, 20 years, and look at the billions of humanitarian aid that has gone into those countries, into your developing countries. So as aid go up, population going up. Yeah.
Yeah, you broke up there, but I think what you were saying is that developed countries have a population growth problem in that they're contracting or not having as many kids as they used to, and developing countries are having many more kids per family.
Yeah, why are we shipping billions of food aid into developing countries and they're helping their populations explode? It doesn't make any sense.
Right. So, I mean, how fired up are you about the foreign aid?
No, I'm not talking about foreign aid. I'm talking about people giving money. People shouldn't give money. Okay. I'm talking about NGOs, not non-government organizations.
Oh, so you're saying because certain countries have high fertility, have many children, that they should not be receiving aid until they have less children.
I'm just saying that, you know, all you guys that are like thinking you're helping things out by dumping billions of dollars in, you know, aid, you know, through NGOs. I'm not talking about government aid. Is actually, you know, exacerbating the situation. And it's actually like, if those countries were having difficulty with, you know, providing food or safety, and you know, maybe the country just doesn't have good agricultural capability, why you want to have more people living there? Doesn't make any sense to me.
All right. What if we looked and we found that in certain economies, households with more children are able to provide more support to the family, and they provide labor? I mean, that was true in America in the agricultural days.
Yeah.
right? So I don't necessarily think that countries are predisposed to screwing themselves. I think countries sort of are in the economic stage of development that they're in. And if people feel like having more kids provides more support to the family, they can work and contribute. And they're actually, because that's the one thing, like in the US and developed countries, kids are expensive if you want to give them all the resources. But in many countries, kids are actually an economic, rational decision.
Yeah, it's like an asset, maybe like tilling the farms
It's
or something
labor.
like that. And also maybe they have a high mortality rate. But so that's how my feeling there. But now getting back to the UBI thing with America, like definitely if you feel that we have too many workers and AI is gonna, if you believe in what Yang says, artificial intelligence and automation and all that, then why do you need to have kids? Just should have less in America. So if you want the UBI, then no kids, maybe no kids even. Better.
No kids.
Yeah, take it to. I like to take it to the extreme because then probably it'll settle at one.
I guess
Can you live with UBI and no kids? Can you support that?
No, I cannot support that. No. Because I know there are plenty of people who have kids who need help, and having kids is a natural human process. It's
not a natural human process that you. It's not a natural human process that the rest of the country has to pay for you. Basically, where's the UBI come from? It's coming from the rest of the country. So we shouldn't be paying for your natural human process. Like a lot of people want sex. The government doesn't pay people to have sex.
Right. But a UBI is not paying people to have kids. A UBI is just irrespective of your family situation, you get a floor.
Yeah,
and you're saying
helps support that whole issue.
And you're saying the moment someone has kids, they're like, oh, no economic floor for you. You're on your own. That just seems weird.
I don't want to encourage people that are on government doles to be having kids. So I'm hugely against like the Octomom situation that happened, a decade or two ago. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to reward bad behavior or stupid behavior.
Reward bad behavior. Yeah, I think the crux of it is the behavior you don't like that Octomom situation, I think is in some ways a symptom of poverty. It is not the cause of poverty.
So,
and the reason I believe that is when people have resources, they tend to have less kids.
So what I'm just saying, look, okay, so in the Octomom situation, maybe instead of rewarding her for every additional kid she had, we could have said, okay, if you want to get money, then go on first, no kids or forced sterilization or something.
Okay. That's a pretty, you are going to an extreme there.
Yeah.
But
that's how I really feel. That's how I really feel.
I feel you.
I would support the UBI. I would support the UBI in that.
Does it matter? I mean, maybe you might like this, that the UBI was not going to go per kid. It was just per adult.
I know, but I'm saying I want restrictions on the UBI.
And the restriction was that it was only for 18 and older. So in Octomom's case, there would be no economic benefit to her until the kids were 18.
Yeah. We could talk more about it after, I'm still very much against the UBI. So you're asking me what situations I would be open to the UBI. Basically there would need to be some restrictions to not reward rampant growth like we have in developing countries in America.
All righty then. We're gonna have to end our conversation on that note because I think you're going a little far out, and I
yes.
You know what? I appreciate your openness, and I appreciate the fact that you are.
Is that very right wing? Is it like am I really how far right am I on this?
I think any kind of government sterilization is considered extremely fringe.
Okay.
Right? Because I think people will generally argue that that's their body, That's their right. Now you could say, all right,
Hey,
well
listen,
then
choice. You want the UBI?
you what would have been just plain old maybe conservative would have been, well, if you shouldn't be rewarded for having many kids, that's fine. That's the way the Yang policy was written. You could have gone a step further and say, well, if you have too many kids and you still can't support yourself, the government's not going to bail you out. Maybe you could say that, but you went to step 3, which was the government affecting your reproductive capabilities, right? Which is that's, in my opinion, like I don't know. I don't think that.
I don't think people. I mean, I'm not going to change my opinion, but I think people will not like that because obviously they want abortion. So obviously, if they want the right to control their own body to abort or not abort, then they're not going to want the government saying that you can't even have, So,
yeah, I mean, it also has a bunch of, World War II kind of associations. So,
Yeah, maybe we just don't go with the UBI. Maybe just forget the UBI.
Well, we'll see. It doesn't sound like with Biden or Trump we're going to get UBI, but let's have you back on the show again, Peter. A lot of people were saying that they really enjoy dynamic.
I just want to apologize if I ever come across, to your audience as very insensitive. Or maybe too fringe or too right-wing. I don't mean to come across that. I'm just very pro-American, and again, I don't mean to sound crazy to you guys. Yeah.
No, I hear you, and I think if I had to summarize what you were saying last, I think if I may, let me try and rephrase what you're saying.
Yeah, because I don't want to be like casted as a.
No, I got you. I got you.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is you have a fundamental belief that people should be self-sufficient, that you don't feel like it's the government's job to provide, all of the resources to each person. You feel like you pull up your bootstraps. Everybody kind of, works hard and takes care of themselves. Kind of. That's your fundamental belief. And I think your concern with UBI is you're worried about people making sort of bad choices for themselves because they have these kind of perverse incentives from the government to get more resources by having maybe more kids than they can raise. And you're worried about that. So I think that's where you're going. And then as a thought exercise, you were saying, well, what would be the most extreme way to remove that scenario? And you listed some that are, I would argue, are pretty out there. But I think it came from a place of you don't want the government encouraging people to have kids when they can't support them, especially if the government doesn't have that much resources to begin with.
Yeah, and also when you throw out an extreme, it's just all about negotiation. You throw out an extreme position like I did, then maybe if it opens to discussion, then you kind of meet in the middle, or we'll meet more towards the right side rather than completely open spigot left.
Yeah, maybe we could compromise that only people 18 and older would get the basic income, and then there's no incentive for having multiple children, but people can have them if they want them.
I don't know, but anyhow, yeah, it's good talking to you, Tom.
All right, man. You want to say goodbye, nerds? Goodbye, nerds.
Goodbye, nerds. Bye.
All right.